13 32, a number. We spoke last week about the illegal dumping, particularly in relation to asbestos, and we saw that mess that was left at Chester Hill. Now, we've got a scenario now where increasingly a number of local councils are using hidden motion sensor CCTV cameras to try and catch the offenders. And the Transport Workers Union has unveiled some of the popular tipping locations, the dumping locations, because their concern is that this sort of activity is undercutting those who are reputable. Nick McIntosh is a senior official with the TWU in New South Wales, and he's on the line. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Stuart.
Is this becoming rife, the problem of illegal dumping?
Look, Stuart, I'm afraid to say it's the Wild West out there at the moment. As you just said, we've got this terrible situation where people are just undercutting the minimum rate, so people are just being able to come in more and more and undercut the good guys in this scenario, and that's causing all sorts of problems, which you just alluded to, includes all this illegal dumping everywhere.
What are some of the popular dump sites that the TWU has identified?
Well, we know on the Grand Parade in Rose Hill, there's Railcorp property there that people like to dump on. Illawarra Road in Menai, Heathcote Road in Menai. I've got a whole list of time, Stuart. It's shocking.
Henry Lawson Drive at Lansdowne is another of them, and then you get to some of the areas like Londonderry, Luddenham, Kent Lynn at the back of Campbelltown. It's another popular dumping spot.
It is, and it's just that there's three major problems that we think are coming from this. Is that one is that people are coming in and undercutting, so that means that it's not only the illegal dumping, it's that then they won't maintain their trucks, and it's also that they'll overload. So not only have they got hazardous waste that they're going to illegally dump, their trucks are overloaded, so it could spill all over the road. If you're taking it from Sydney to Londonderry, you could have asbestos anywhere in the road between there, which is just a truly shocking thing.
Is there any sort of checks, balances used when a load of rubbish leaves a premises, a building site? Any check on balance that it ends up at a legitimate landfill site or not? Well,
I mean, here's the problem, and you alluded to it earlier with the Chester Hill situation, is we estimate that the guy that's dumped it at Chester Hill has probably saved $2,000 just alone in the illegal dumping, because he hasn't had to go and put it in a tip that deals with this hazardous waste and deals with asbestos. So the problem is a lot of operators and head contractors, and some of these happen on state government contracts, I'm afraid to say, are just happy enough that someone comes in quoting, saying, I'll do the job properly, quotes lower, they don't bother checking whether or not they're dumping it in the right place or their truck's maintained or anything like that. And they just, the head contractor says, thanks very much, that's a cheap option and I don't have to think about it again, and off you go.
And it's as simple as that. So you've got a scenario there where all they're worried about is the cheapest price, and that can even be within government departments.
Well, that's the sad thing, Stuart, is that you could be talking about some of these massive state government projects where we're seeing a lot of our members who are quoting the minimum rates that are paid in this state, and those minimum rates are there for a purpose. It is so that they can afford to put asbestos in the right place and maintain the truck properly and not overload the truck and all those sorts of things. And they're getting undercut by people who are just prepared to come in there with a truck, put it on the back of the truck, and wherever they can dump it, they dump it. And of course, as I said, the head contractor is interested in the lowest price and nothing else, and the minute it leaves the site, they wipe their hands clean.
Yeah.
So we need what we're asking is we need the state government to come in here and regulate this industry, both in their own sites and for private contracts, and we want a one strike and you're out policy. If we worked out where an illegal dumping, what site it was from, we believe that the head contractor should have one strike and you're out, because in that way, if the head contractor has some responsibility to know where it goes and to make sure that the truck's well maintained and all the rest of it, we believe it's a lot less likely it's going to happen.
That's very true. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, this argument that rolls around, well, when it comes to getting rid of asbestos, government charges, landfill charges, they're all too high. It's hardly a justification, though. I mean, you understand if you are dealing with asbestos, it does require a greater care in handling. Is there any justification that, well, it's all too expensive, so I'll just dump it somewhere else for nothing?
Well, I don't. I mean, look, I'm sure that the rates are based on some formula the state government's come up with, but there's no excuse to say, oh, it's all too expensive.
Well, it's a cop-out, isn't it?
Well, it is, and Stuart, if everyone was playing by the same rules, it wouldn't matter what the expense was, because the head contractor at the top of the supply chain, whether it be a state government or a private head contractor, would be paying that cost.
You'd be working off exactly the same base regardless, wouldn't you?
That's it. They'd have to pay to whichever tipper came in to take the stuff away. So it shouldn't be that the tipper has to worry about that. And of course, that's what happens when it's unregulated, is someone comes in to cut corners, and all that happens is the public gets put at risk and all the good guys go out of business.
And so we've just got these cowboys operating as if the joint's the Wild West and their dumping ground.
Well, that's it. I mean, you and I just listed about 10 different sites, and I've got many more here that happened. And I mean, that Chester Hill scenario,
disgraceful.
It's just, I mean, you can only think, imagine if, well, we don't know who went past it and who was...
Well, we don't. We might not know for 20, 30 years. Nothing might happen, but something might. And the problem is we won't know for years and years. They might even trace it back to that by the time they realise there's a problem.
And as far as I know, Stuart, the culprit concerned is still at large.
Yes,
and at the end of the day, has managed to save himself $2,000 and put someone else out of business who was doing the right thing.
And the question you'd have to ask is, if you're prepared to do that on Boundary Road through Chester Hill, where else have they been dumping crap before and since?
Well, that's exactly right. And as I said, this is where it's a huge risk to the community. I mean, we all know in Sydney there's a lot of hazardous material that gets pulled out of the ground when there's construction projects. Yeah. And if it's just getting dumped wherever in Sydney people can get away with it, then who knows when you walk by somewhere whether or not the landfill is hazardous or not.
No, well, look, stay with it. It's a very important campaign. I appreciate your time, Nick.
Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, good on you. Senior official with the Transport Workers Union in New South Wales, Nick McIntosh. So there's a list of them. You may know some others in your neck of the woods where it's become all too prevalent for illegal dumping. But Bushland off Heathcote, Illawarra Roads at Menai, Henry Lawson Drive at Lansdowne. We saw Boundary Road in Chester Hill. In and around the Blacktown City Council, 105 incidents of illegal asbestos dumping in the past financial year. Londonderry, Luddenham, Kent Lynn, you name it. The list goes on, where people figure they can get the edge on competitors by dumping stuff illegally.
TWU